Good morning. It's Wednesday, August 21st in Mattsby's mornings. And today it's looking like a relatively slow start to the morning, right? Just around flat for the QQQ. Essentially, things have been continuing on their uptrend. And when I look at this chart right here, I see good things, right? I see things that want to continue. And more importantly, what I'm really looking at for the QQQ for the levels are essentially the Fibonacci extension levels here. And I'm just going to take off the Ichimoku so you can see it clearly because you don't really need the Ichimoku right here since it's basically 100% bullish at all. So from the previous high right here back in 2021 and the low down here back in 2022, you can see that it's holding above this 1.414 Fibonacci 472. So that's essentially the level that I want price to hold above, right? I'm looking at 472 for the QQQ on weekly closes, on monthly candle closes and stuff like that, just to continue up towards the 1.618 fib up here because everything else is perfectly symmetrical and fine. So even with the GAN, I don't expect it to come back down to that arc anymore. I expect it to hold these Fibonacci extension levels, right? At least the 1.414 and worst case, maybe the 1.272. So I believe it's just moving one step higher at a time. And after the 168, it's going to be the green level up there, 531. And then eventually the 272 at 603 up there. But I think the continuation higher is very strong, very powerful. This V bottom kind of proves that. What's really going to happen next is probably just more consolidation because there is some resistance up here with these candles as well. So starting from maybe the 485 all the way up to the 500s will be some resistance for the Qs. So we'll see if that can get going. Good morning, everybody. All right, let's look at the IWM pre-market. So IWM, it's up, it's up pretty nicely, up 213.97. And Ichimoku kind of is telling the story here as well. This one is looking like it wants to hold that conversion line as a weekly support. So if that's the case, then I can see price continuing up towards the arc again, which is 221. And I'm not going to get super excited, super bullish until it can flip that arc to a support. It did close that 1 week above it, but then the following week just collapsed, right? So you don't want to see something like that where it breaks above and then the next week it just falls. That means it just was a fake out. So essentially that was the back test that was needed. And it did open that 1 week right on the 45-degree angle. And now it's like working its way back up. So I can see price just range in between like the 212 zone all the way up to the 221 for maybe a few more weeks or so, depending, or a few months. It could be just a boring couple months until the election, not too sure. But the trajectory, the trend is in the right direction. The bias is still to the upside, and I think price can continue higher, but not going to get super excited until it can flip that 221 level to a support for sure. And let's take a look at SPYI. That one is, up $1 pre-market, 559.70. Essentially, this one is very close to the all-time highs now. Very close. The previous all-time high was 565.16. And this is on the way, right? So it's basically just a little bit more to go, and then it's there. But I don't know if it's going to break above with ease or if it's going to come up a little bit more and get rejected and then come back down to retest some lower support levels. So just got to wait to see that. If we did draw some fibs from the previous high to the previous low down here, you can see that it's right getting back to the 1.618 as well, right? The 1.414 held as support, even the 1.272 held as support, but now it's probably going to get some rejection there around 561, 562, around that. So just got to be prepared for that. I'm not expecting it to break through right away, but if it does, if and when it does flip that to a support, then it's going to go to the next level, and that next level is the 2.272, the 647. So things are going in the right direction for all the indices. There's really only positive signs out there. So nothing is looking like it's ready to collapse at all, especially with every single indice doing this V bottom here. That's very good to see. And you saw it here as well back in April of 2024, a V bottom. And you're seeing a more intense one there. So that's a good sign to see. Yeah, I checked SPYI, and I'll check SOFI in a minute too. But essentially SPYI, and I put it in the Patreon chat as well. You guys can check it out there. But essentially, it's just it's range bound, right? It's designed that way. This has dividends, right? What's the dividend? It's like 11.57 dividend, right? And so essentially, uh, yeah, it's designed to just stay in a range, really. And ever since inception back here in 2022, it's just been stuck, right? From basically the 50s down to the mid 40s. And I personally think if it ever gets back down to the 48s, 49s, I think that'd be an opportunity. But SPYI, it's just designed to be in a range, right? It's not designed to explode higher. It's not designed to really tank right now. But if the market ever did collapse, it would collapse along with it, right? So that's one thing. So this is basically in an uptrend, right? If the market was in a downtrend, then you would see something different. But it's still designed just to be in a range. SOFI, yeah, let me look at SOFI here for you guys. All right, so SOFI, this is my linear scale chart here, and essentially with the Ichimoku, it is approaching some resistance up above with the baseline at 760 up there. But when I just take everything off, just to use my market symmetry for everything, you can see that it's really approaching that orange angle again. And that orange angle has been a resistance in the past, right? Like right here was resistance. It used to be a support, but then it flipped it to a resistance, and now it's approaching that zone again. So the top of that range right now is like 755, maybe even like 760, which kind of coincides with that baseline that I mentioned on the Ichimoku as well. So there's a lot of confluence that 760 is resistance, right? But when I go to my log scale chart here, just want to show you that one. It has some room to go back to the 45 right up there, and the 45-degree angle up here, it sits around $8. And this one has more precise resistance and support, and I like it from right here as a previous support, then a confirmation of a flip to resistance right here. So I like the chances of getting back up to $8 for SOFI before any real major resistance on the log scale chart. So anywhere from 760 up to $8 is really going to be a tight range. Could be some struggles for SOFI, and I don't really see it breaking above $8 anytime soon. And not only that, like if you were just to draw kind of a line across right here where all this resistance was from the candle, like all this, you can see, right? It used to be a support right here, support, flipped it to a resistance here. You can see that clearly, that this line around $7.90 to $8 is going to be very difficult for SOFI to break. So if price gets up there, then probably not a bad idea to take some profits, in my opinion, because it's going to be a challenge, right? But when it does break, then I think finally it'll go higher and higher. But the initial test of it coming up, I don't think it'll break the first time. All right. Let's see here. BNB, TRX. Yeah, we'll do some crypto down here. I think we did TRX yesterday, to be honest. But BNB, I think I have a chart for that. Yeah, I do. Here's my BNB chart for on linear scale. And essentially it held the market symmetry perfectly from here, right? From this low. I didn't go from the very beginning down there, but I just went from this low. And essentially, yeah, it went up to the blue level there perfectly and then back down to the orange level there perfectly. And then that was basically the bottom. And now it's working its way back up on top of these arcs. So it looks like the bottom has been found for BNB for sure. And whether it goes down the arc here more or if it just continues higher towards the 670s or up to the 720s above, that is still to be determined. And if you put on the Ichimoku there too, you can see that it's actually battling the baseline there for the weekly candle close for the first time in a long time, right? Well, first time since a month, right? It was above it before, but now since this red candle closed, it's been below that baseline ever since. And now it's working on closing this Sunday above it. So got to pay attention to that 544. If it closes above it, then I think there's a really good chance for a continuation higher for BNB right there. And TRX. Let's look at TRX. Yeah, so here's my TRX chart. Really powerful move. Essentially, that 45-degree angle, it was really, really solid, like resistance for a while, right? You can see it was support here, then it flipped it to resistance for a long time, and now it just broke out. Like it broke out of that range. Not only that, this weekly candle looks like it wants to close back above that 14-cent zone too. So I see it going up to 17, 18 cents before any kind of major rejection there. And if that happens, then that will be probably some resistance and then maybe go back and retest the 45 at that point down there. So great breakout. But not only that, there is some resistance with the previous highs over here, right? Around 1780. So that's why I think that could be a magnet for price, but I don't think it's going to break it anytime soon because of this previous high and it's the orange level and things like to backtest levels after they break out. So the backtest of that 45-degree angle could be possible. Let's see. Tesla, of course. Tesla. There's only one thing about Tesla that I care about right now, and that is this chart right here. Closing the week above 221, right? That's all I care about, closing back above it. And when that happens, they could be in that higher trading range again from the 220s up to the 250s, right? One step at a time, right? And that is going to be the first step, getting back above that 382 level. And once it's back above there, then everything will be fine. But you can look at all the resistance here with the Ichimoku and stuff like that, but I don't really care right now because I really want the fibs to flip to a support, right? That's what I care about the most. And that's what I'm going to look for the rest of the week. So everything else is just noise to me. If it closes back below, then maybe it's not ready yet. But if it closes above, I think there's a good chance that all that resistance you see on the Ichimoku or the moving averages or whatnot will probably get broken pretty easily. So just that 221 level for Tesla, that's all I care about. PFE. Pfizer. So Pfizer, we'll just use that alone. And you can see that it's trying to get back into the cloud. And you don't really need anything else. You can see the resistance of the conversion line and the bottom of the cloud. You can see it tried to get back above there back in July, but it could not do it. And so now basically price is working its way back in there. And I think within the next couple of weeks, it'll probably be back in there. So it looks like from the bottom here, it is making a series of higher lows, which is a good sign. And the baseline is holding as a support. So I think it's only a matter of time before it really gets back in the cloud and then challenges the cloud above. So eventually maybe the 32s, the 33s could be the target. And right now the support is right down there. Let's see. Good morning. Yes. NVIDIA. Yeah, NVIDIA, essentially, this is really looking fine as well, right? There's nothing to worry about on this chart either. If you just do that Fibonacci from up here down to the low down here, you can see that it's right at the 786, right? Right, or yeah. Let me just zoom in for you guys. Yeah, it got rejected right at the 786, and that's where a lot of rejection happens on retrace levels, right? So essentially, there's no surprise there. And 129, 130, that's the level to break above. So that's kind of what I'm watching for. Weekly candle closes above that 786 level. This is just a rough estimate, right? It's not an exact number because I just did it precisely. I didn't do it precisely. So around 130, I want to see weekly candles close above. If that happens, then I think it'll go much, much higher. But essentially, that's the line in the sand for me. Anything else is just noise. I think as long as it stays above the 618 around 121, then you're fine. If it goes a little bit below that, then possibly not so good. But that range from 121 up to 130 is what I'm really watching. And I'm not going to get excited until it breaks that 786 here on the linear scale for NVIDIA. What are the numbers you aim for on the Gann square? Price bar ratio and the other number I can't name. Yeah, it's just like the X and Y axis. It's just the scale of the chart, really. So the price bar ratio, and depending on log scale and linear scale, they're scaled differently, right? So because one is like based off of percentages, which is log scale, and the other is just off of linear. So yeah, essentially it's price bar ratio, but I have a whole course all about it in my Telegram. If people really want to learn, it's on my X profile. Let's see here, CVX. Chevron. Well, this one broke support, right? But it is back in a zone, right? It's back in this range right here. It looks like that could have been the low, just because if you look to the left, you can see all these wicks right here, and that support held. So this is going to be support until it's proven otherwise. And right now that sits in the lower 140s, and now it's working its way back up. But when it comes back up to this level up here, guess what? It's going to be resistance for Chevron. So it's looking like what was once a good uptrend is now going and making a series of, I'll just take this off, a series of lower highs, right? See, here's the high, lower high, lower high, lower high, lower high. See, it's just in a downtrend now. And maybe this is finding a new base to build an uptrend, but until it's proven that it can get a higher high again, it's still in a downtrend. So I think anytime it comes back to those levels up here, 150s, I think it could be sold off and continue lower to maybe confirm that this is the low. And if it's not, then there's more pain ahead. So we'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, Anna, I just did NVIDIA earlier. So PayPal, let's see, PayPal, what's it doing today? What's PayPal doing today? Yeah, so here's my Gann chart for PayPal. Well, just the Ichimoku alone. Just the Ichimoku alone is looking good, right? Looking really, really good. So let's just use the market symmetry instead, because the resistance and the support for the Ichimoku, or there is no more resistance for Ichimoku, and the support is kind of far away. But when you look at the market symmetry of this right here, you can see that it's building a base back above that orange angle. So the ultimate target for me is back to the blue up here around the 82s, right? And then eventually I can see it getting back to the orange level up here in the 94 zone. So I think it's on the right path, the right trajectory to continue higher with a series of higher highs and higher lows from the bottom, right? You can see from October 23, higher high, higher low, higher high. There's higher lows, right? This is a very good thing you want to see for a bull market. And now this market structure is looking to be like it wants to be officially bullish again because of this weekly candle. And as long as this weekly candle closes strong like this, then I can see a continuation, right? But if the next few days closes red or something, then that'll be a warning sign that maybe it wants to go back and retest levels. But essentially, this kind of market structure is what you want to see for a reversal from a bear market to a bull market. And this is what I look for. And this is like a textbook example of something that is finally looking bullish and looking great and wants to continue higher. So not only do I think it'll get to 80s, I think it'll get to the 90s and beyond too in the future. So it's just the start, the beginning of something that could be really good. Let's see. I see a request for a crypto there. Tau. And just based off of market symmetry for Tau here, it's very, very textbook as well. And actually, market symmetry and market structure, the market structure never broke. You can see this wick right here, 192.84. No candle body ever closed below it. So it never made a lower low. So it's still a higher low from here, right? This wick did go below, but the candle body never closed below. So that means this market structure is still really, really good. And I think the path towards the 380s again to this 45-degree angle, which was a support, now a resistance. I think that'll be the next really long-term resistance target until that can break to continue higher. So it's just really in a range right now. If you put on the Ichimoku there, you can clearly see that it's back above the conversion line, which is good. And also the bottom of the cloud lines up almost perfectly with my 45-degree angle. So that's confirmation to me that it's going to be a challenge to break through that level, at least initially, right? Maybe in the longer run, it'll be fine. But the good thing is this chart is still really bullish, even though it had a big drawdown. And Microsoft... right here. Yeah, so here's my Microsoft chart. Essentially, it's stuck, right? Stuck underneath the 427 level and above the 407 level, right? Right in between a range. And it's closer to resistance than it is support. So I just want to see if this week has enough energy or whatever to close the weekly candle above that 427. If it can, then maybe that resistance right there can flip to a support. So that's just the range right now. And again, can't really get too excited near resistance because it's near resistance, right? I want to see it break first before I see any kind of confirmation it wants to go higher or any excitement. Let's see, we got 7 more minutes before the market opens. Let's see here. I see a request, a door. What is that? That's the door technologies. Yeah, maybe that one. You can't really chart this really. It's essentially it's in a downtrend. If this is the one you're talking about, door technologies, right? So essentially, yeah, I can't be really bullish on it until possibly it breaks this resistance at 1 penny. So we'll see. RHHBY. It's an OTC. Okay, this one, Rush Holding, this is looking pretty good now, right? This is kind of an example of what PayPal is trying to do, right? It was in a downtrend, but then now this is on top of the cloud. It's even closing candles above the previous highs over here. So that means the market structure is bullish as well. So it looks like it wants to continue higher, but it's getting a little bit extended from the conversion line. So there could be a pullback anytime. But the good news is I still see a price continuation up towards like maybe the 43s or even up here to the 45s before any kind of serious resistance levels, right? So it's in an uptrend. It's reversed from a bearish stock to a bullish stock, so it looks good for the future. Let's see. LLY, I see a request for. And Lily, yeah, the Ichimoku 100% bullish. Don't need it, so I'll take it off. I'll just rely on my GAN here. And you can see a previous resistance level here. The orange level went up, flipped it to a support, and now it's working on more resistance. So it's just stuck in the middle of some arcs here. And that current resistance is right there at like 967, 968. And the support currently could be down there in the 890s. So that's what I'm really looking at in between there. So it's essentially stuck between the all-time highs and the bottom arc, right? So I'm not going to get really excited about this one unless it can flip that arc to a support to continue higher to these levels up here in the 1300s. Anyone know when the benchmark revisions of U.S. jobs are revealed? I think it's like, what, 10 p.m. Eastern or something, or 10 a.m. Eastern. Yeah. Alrighty, let's see here. Sometime today, PayPal. I already did PayPal. You're welcome for CVX, SYG group or SY group. SY group. I guess it's this one. Wow, that one is taken off, right? Yeah, that's a bullish stock without any indicators on, right? You can just see that price wants to continue up, right? It's breaking levels. It even broke the previous highs over here in the 92-cent zone. So that ultimately is going to be your support if it ever wants to come back down and successfully backtest that zone. So that's what I'd be looking at for support. But essentially, it just wants to keep going, right? And there's really nothing above it. If you look to the left over here, you can see that previous highs up here could be the ultimate resistance, right? In the 110s, 115s, 116 zone, that zone. When it gets up there, that could be some resistance because that was the previous all-time high, right? So usually the previous all-time high will offer some resistance. So it's almost there, right? So it's almost to that resistance level. And Airbnb. Let's take a look at Airbnb. Yeah, you just need this chart to see what's really going on. It lost its support. It lost a lot of support, right? Even when you put on the moving averages up here, you can see it lost the 50 and the blue 100 too. So essentially what's really happening now is it's trying to find a bottom, and it looks like what's happening is it's still holding these lows. So it's not really a lower low yet, right? So the market structure is still fine as long as maybe that 113.24 holds on a candle body close, on a weekly close, right? If that doesn't, then it could go much lower, but we'll cross that bridge if it comes to it. But essentially, this is the range down there into the 113s all the way up to the 129s. And I think back to the 129, 130 zone will be some resistance for Airbnb. So it has the opportunity to go up, but I don't think it has much more than the 130s after that. Cisco, CSCO. So is Cisco overbought? Well, not if it closes above the 200-week moving average, right? And that's at 50.04 because it's been struggling with that for a long time. You can see a long time, right? So if it gets weekly candle back above it, I think it has the potential to kind of hold this zone as a support. And that's from 50 all the way down to maybe 49. That zone, I think, could be a good support zone for Cisco. But yeah, if you zoom out a little bit more, let me just take everything off so we can see it clear. Is it overbought? It's getting there, right? So even if it crosses above that 200, you're still getting more resistance with the arc above, and that's going to sit right there around 51.50 or so. So it can have a little more room to run, but I don't really expect it to bust through this level very quickly just because it's proven to be a big resistance level. You can see right here, this lower arc resistance, right here, resistance, coming back up. It'll probably be resistance again. So just got to be patient on that one, but it's looking better and better, right? And it's looking like a base is kind of forming. But we need to realize that if it does lose like those $49 levels, especially when you look at the moving averages here, if it starts to lose all this, then the possibility to roll over and get to that 40 level becomes possible to reconfirmed this area as support. So we just got to pay attention to this 49 level, make sure it holds. And yes, good morning, Netflix Crypto, Palantir. Yeah, so Palantir, that is doing exactly what I am expecting to do still. It is, the market is open now. Let me go to my log scale chart for Palantir though. Just because I like it more. And yeah, you guys know what I'm watching for this. If you've been watching since yesterday, for Palantir, essentially it's closing a weekly candle back above that angle, right? Because if it can't do it, then it's going to be resistance still. And if it's resistance still, then it's probably going to go back down and retest levels into the 30s, maybe 29s, right? So just got to see how this week closes. And I mentioned yesterday, I want to see it close above 33. And if it closes above 33, then I think it has a potential to get to the arcs above, and the arcs above sit right there around $36. Let's see, John. When you use GAN, does it matter how far you drag it? Yes, it absolutely matters, right? Absolutely matters. And again, I have a course all about it if you really want to learn, because it's not just random. You can't just like, oh, I want this box this size. No, it has to be precise. Let's see, Amazon, if no more ask, you have time. So Amazon, yeah, we can take a look at Amazon. So that's the log scale. Let's go to the linear scale, Amazon. So essentially it's at 180, and with the Ichimoku there, it's above support. So that is good, right? The support does sit at 176.41. And that means it's just stuck in a range from this 188 to the 176, right? So I want to see weekly candles close above that 188. And if it does, then that'll be good, because it used to be a really big resistance level there in the past. So a weekly candle close above it would be fantastic to see a continuation higher into the 200s eventually. And CLSK. So CLSK is looking pretty good, right? When it comes to holding support. So otherwise, it's just stuck, right? And the good thing about it is it's not like going lower from the lows. So that's why it's good that it's holding support, but it's not so good because it's still stuck under resistance. So I think when we look at the log scale version, it kind of tells a better story of it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, the log scale version, just by looking at the GAN, it tells the story. And I mentioned last night on our triumvirate YouTube channel with Cat and Tracker that this was a previous support zone, right? It was previously resistance right here, this 1360, 1370, resistance there, then support, and then it broke, right? So this 1360, 1370 is really going to be a challenge for CleanSpark. And what I can see happening is one of two things. Either it runs back up, gets rejected and rolls over, or it comes back down sometime either soon to the 45-degree angle, or it goes sideways over time and then finally gets to the 45 later this year, right? So we'll see what happens, but just look at this 45. You can see it was resistance, 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 and flipping to a support. But after this 37% weekly candle, it never went to backtest the 45-degree angle. So I think it's really a possibility that it wants to go there eventually sometime, whether that's next month or maybe next year. I don't know, right? It depends on time, but essentially market structure on CLSK is still really bullish on the high time frame. It's just the short term, it lost this support. And when you lose support, it's just going to stay in a range for a while until it has enough time to break through again. All right, let's look at, I have another request for BLBD. BLBD. Bluebird. So yeah, just looking at this chart alone without any indicators, it's really bullish, right? I can see one thing possibly happening though, that maybe price wants to go back and retest this high at around 38 maybe in the future. Let's see on the Ichimoku what's going on. Yeah, it's starting to lose strength because it's below the conversion line there, but it's still above the baseline. So essentially, if it loses that baseline, I think it's going to be confirmation that it's going to go back down to 38. But if it holds that, then there's a possibility to continue higher. But it is kind of extended from the cloud, so it's losing momentum. You can see from the high, it's a series of lower highs and lower lows, right? So essentially, just got to see how this plays out. But it looks like it just wants to cool off for a bit because it had a nice run, right? Just got to cool off. Nah, MSTR, no, I didn't cover that yet, but I can cover MSTR for you guys. How's Tesla doing? 222. Nice. MSTR. Still in that range, right? Still just stuck. It's stuck right there around the baseline and the conversion line. It's just really, really battling which direction it's going to go. And I think it's going to go wherever Bitcoin goes, right? If Bitcoin continues flat, then MicroStrategy will continue flat. Bitcoin goes up, so will MicroStrategy, or if it goes down, it'll go down too. But what's kind of looking most likely to me is over the next few weeks, it's going to just drift sideways to down to maybe retest this cloud. That's what I think is the most likely scenario right now, just because it's losing strength, right? It's losing strength. So I think the target could be anywhere from 109, 110, maybe even up to 120. I think that could be the shorter term target, but the longer term target, it doesn't matter. I think it's going to at least 300, if not more, right? So essentially, this chart is looking really bullish, but it just had a really big explosive move. So it's just consolidating to find its new higher low before it wants to go higher. Let's see for MATIC. We have a request. Did I miss it? I had it somewhere. MATIC, yeah, there it is. So, yeah, I remember this chart. I've had this one for a while, and it's even trying to break above the conversion line. So I'm going to consider this zone support, right? Right there, which is kind of proof of my angle. So around 45 cents is going to be support for MATIC, and I think it's pretty close to that right now. But when you zoom out for MATIC on this Gann chart, you can see how important that angle has been. Like in the past, right here, right here, right here, right? It's been a very important angle since the beginning, and it just back tested it. So it did lose this blue level, but that's fine because it found this support here. And as long as it holds that 45 cents now, I think there's an opportunity to break this resistance above and the 53s and then continue higher and higher, right? I think that's really looking like a possibility. And when you look to the left, it never made lower lows from here either, right? So that's a really good sign too. So it looks like to me, MATIC is in the bottoming process right now for everything, right? It looks good. Let's see, Cardano. And Cardano is looking okay as well, right? It's just using market symmetry alone. You don't need any indicators to see what happened. It reached its peak up here, then lost support all the way down, then it found support basically with the arc, right? It did go a little bit below this angle here, but now it's finding support on the top arc. And you can go back in time and you can see how important that was, right? See, it was support, resistance, resistance. Now it's support again. So it's just a retest of support for Cardano. And I think it has the opportunity to continue higher. And if you put on the weekly Ichimoku, it's still under that 36 cent resistance. So it's not like it's going to bounce immediately right away. I think once it gets above 36, then I'll have opportunities to build more strength. But I think it looks like at least this bottom is in for the time being. And it looks like it could be an opportunity if price were to go back down to that 30 cent zone. So SMCI, I do have a chart for that. And it's still in the cloud, which is good right there. So I'm considering right now 577, 570 or 580 is going to be support, and your resistance is up here at around 665. And when I take this off, the most important thing that I've been talking about for SMCI is the fact that I want it to stay above that 550 level, maybe 551, 552. I want it to stay above there, that blue angle, because if that's the case, then there's no need to come back down to this orange angle and retest it. So if it stays above there, then there's a great chance to continue higher. But there's going to be lots of resistance above, right? There's going to be resistance above at the Ichimoku levels right there at like 660 all the way up to 730, right? But even more resistance, there's going to be right here back at 770. Like this GAN level right here is going to be a lot of resistance in the future. So it's going to take a lot of time, I think, to get past that. They can probably pass everything else pretty easily, but getting past this level, I think, will take some time just because it was a major support level and then it lost it. So now it's flipping it to a resistance. So it's just going to take time to get back above that. But essentially, my range right now that I'm looking at is staying above 550 and below 770 right there, just this range. And in time, it'll tell us the direction. But I think that could have been the bottom right here, the 478. I think that was the bottom. Yeah, so I'll go to AVAX. I think I saw a request just now. Yeah. Yeah, so AVAX, same situation with a lot of them. It's lost some support, right? This blue level was important. You can see that it was like a support, then a resistance, then a support, then a support, then this bearish engulfing flipped it to a resistance. So now you can see that price is going and approaching this resistance zone. So essentially that zone is $24, right? So any kind of retest of 24, I think it won't get broken the first time. So after that, it might go and retest some levels below. So it's trying to find a bottom. And as long as this wick holds, there's not a necessity to come back to this arc. But you can see in the past, this arc is important, right? You can see it right here. It was resistance, then it was support. And a back test of that could be necessary. So just putting it out there that it's not out of the question, not out of the norm to do it. But so far, it looks like this could be the bottom. And we'll see what happens when price gets to this $24 level. All right, luck flows. Do you use extended hours for any of your projections? Well, when you look at weekly charts for stocks, they don't have extended hours in it. But when I look at the 4-hour charts, yes, I have the extended hours. Or when I look at 1-hour charts, yes, I have extended hours. But for weekly charts, they do not exist because they're weekly candles and they don't take those into consideration. And I rely mostly on weekly and monthly candles. All right, we'll look at HIMS. So HIMS, this is what I'm really looking at right here, is this angle. And this is all I care about, really, this angle, because it was a resistance, flip to a support, confirmation of support, right? So essentially my line in the sand without using any other indicators and just this is I want to see price hold above next week above like 1570 and I want to see eventually it break this arc around 1790. So it's just in this tight range now, but it's holding support very well. And what I can really see is just maybe going up this angle through time. And then maybe by later this year, it could flip this top arc back to a support here and then continue higher. So that could be later this year or early next year. So depending. But if it does lose this angle again, then there's a possibility that it'll drag things out longer and it will take a lot more time to get back up there. It's not necessarily a bearish thing. It's just a matter of time, right? These angles kind of represent time. And if they lose an angle, then it just takes more time, right? So that's about it for that. We'll take one last look. I see the VIX there. Yeah, the VIX is basically flat. It's still in a range. There's nothing to worry about with the VIX at all. So just doing what it's doing. But yeah, the Dow's up 45, SPY is up 130, QQQ 1, IWM 1, SMH 130. And one final look here. Yeah, ARK is doing well. Tesla's up 130. NVIDIA is still doing well. Amazon too. CrowdStrike is up. Yeah, so all in all, everything is doing really what it's supposed to be doing. And I really want to see levels be broken before I get really excited, right? And right now, most of everything is like kind of stuck under a little bit of resistance. So we'll just keep an eye on it.